like to wish everyone a happy Balaram Purnima. And we ask everyone to turn off their mobile phones, and especially me. And if you don't turn off your mobile phone, leave it on, because you'll be giving a $10,000 donation to the new temple. So please leave your mobile phone on. It'll be a sign that you're pledging $10,000 for the new temple. So remember that. Okay, so this evening we're going to do a little presentation about Lord Balaram's appearance and speak a little bit about Lord Balaram's appearance. First we'll chant Jai Radha Madhava. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihare Hey His divine grace. Appearance, Balaram, Goswami, Srila Prabhupada. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada. And the devotee, Vaishnava Nikajaya. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur. And say, oh, Shri Krishna, Chaitanya Prabhu, Nityananda, Shri Radha, oh, Bhakti. Shri Shri Radha Krishna, Gopala Sai Kunda, Radha Kunda, Digo Radha Vrindavanam, Balaram, Abhidam, Swami, Purnamai, Shrimadila Sidevi, Bhakta Vrindi, Gaur Premananda. All glories to the Son of the Devotees. All glories to the Son of the Devotees. All glories to the Son of the Devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Gaur Premananda. So Om Maganat Sivaladasha Ranjana Shmakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Our respectful obeisances to my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who so kindly opened my eyes with a torchlight of knowledge while I was blind in the darkness of ignorance. So this afternoon we're going to speak about Lord Balaram. This morning we talked about Lord Balaram's what was called ontological position, in other words, who he is. He's the personal expansion of Krishna. There's what we call his own slam doors. As Prophet said, it cracks the heart. So I don't know if any of you had mothers, but my mother used to tell me, don't slam doors. And most mothers do say that, right? Okay. So there's the Chatur Vyuha expansions of the Lord, which Chatur means four in Sanskrit. And so you have, of course, Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Arjuna, and Ananda. And so you've got Krishna and Balaram, who is the first expansion of Krishna. And Krishna and Balaram enact their pastimes in Vrindavan. Outside, it's interesting, outside of Vrindavan, Krishna and Balaram assume a more, let's say, on-reverent aspect than in Vrindavan. In Vrindavan, the Lord is worshipped in an intimate mood. In other words, there's devotees who actually think that they are superior to the Supreme Lord in Vrindavan. And you do not find that outside of Vrindavan. That consciousness that someone is superior or the Lord is dependent upon one's mercy. So, anyway, so Lord Balaram's mother is Rohini. But there's a very interesting story which sort of parallels the story of Krishna's appearance. We know Krishna was first appearing as the son of who? Devaki. And then what happened to him later on? He was transferred? He got a business transfer? Or no, how was he transferred? By Vasudeva. He brought him to Vrindavan. Now it's interesting, in this particular story about Krishna, the Acharyas explain, particularly Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains, that Krishna actually was the son of Yashodamaya. And when the expansion of Krishna, who came from Devaki, was brought to Vrindavan, that expansion entered into the gender Nandana, the original Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Krishna himself is never outside of Vrindavan. Krishna in his original form is never outside of Vrindavan. Remember that. So the same thing with Balaram. That's why I'm telling the story about Balaram. Very similar thing occurred. That Rohini Devi was already pregnant with the original aspect of Balaram. And the expansion of Balaram, this Sankarshan, that's how you pronounce it, not Sankarshan, Sankarshan, nasal sound. The expansion of Balaram, of Balaram and Vrindavan, appeared in the womb of Devaki and was transferred by Yogamaya, and that transfer meant that the expansion of Balaram entered into the original Balaram and Rohini Devi's womb. Interesting, isn't it? So, another point about Balaram's appearance before we get on with this little slideshow, computer cooperates. Another point is that one might say that why or how could Balaram appear in Devaki's womb, Sankarshan, the expansion of Balaram, when previously there were these, what called these Sadgarbhas, these 6 personalities who were obviously suffering from some sinful reaction, they had been cursed, and they were killed by Kamsa. Well, the explanation given by our acharyas is that these Sadgarbhas, these 6 personalities were killed by Kamsa, represented the 6 anarthas. Everybody knows what an anartha is? Anartha means something you don't want, like an old car, or something breaking down in your house. No, anartha means something you don't want in your heart. And we're not talking about a blockage in the arteries either. We're talking about something you don't want in your heart, like lust. They represent lust, anger, greed, illusion, envy, fear, like that. So the idea is before you can have the mercy of Balaram, you have to deal with those 6 things. And Balaram helps you with those 6 things. And then, so after these 6 personalities were killed and Devaki's womb was ready for Balaram, and then Balaram prepared Devaki's womb for Krishna. Because that's Balaram's service, to serve Krishna. You understand? So, okay, let's get on with this interesting slideshow. So, let's talk about what Balaram means. Of course, Ram means to enjoy, and Bala means what? Strength. So, there's many ways to take this. Of course, when Balaram appeared 5,000 years ago, he showed great external strength too, healing the demons, which we're going to talk about. But he also showed us, according to the Puranas, that without the mercy of Balaram, no one could make any spiritual master. In fact, the Acharyas describe that, first of all, you have to approach spiritual life in a progressive fashion. Progressive fashion means first you approach Balaram's representative, the spiritual master, because the spiritual master, Balaram is the original guru, and the other gurus are representing Balaram. Now, the guru says he's Balaram, that means he's D-O-G instead of G-O-D. Those who can spell, it means he's a dog. Unless he happens to be Balaram. But you find some of these people, these gurus, they say, I'm God, we're all God, but at least I am. Or sometimes you find people who don't say they're God and their followers, in order to create a big movement, say that they were God. So you have all these imitation gods. And we're quite familiar with them. In the 1960s, there were quite a few of them. Quite a few more than we have today. There was a circuit. There were too many. There were some of them were 16 years old, and some of them were 80 years old. And they're not around today. Anyway, so the Padma Purana says, Amante Yogino Nante, the transcendentalists, that means people who are engaged in spiritual life, enjoy or have pleasure in spiritual life, because that's our constitutional position. Our constitutional position is not to be in this world attached to all these gross things. Gross things means this body, this connected body, subtle things, electronic gadgets, because these things have a beginning and an end. The pleasure has a beginning and end. What appears to be like nectar becomes like poison. But transcendental happiness is not double-booty butter, but it increases unlimitedly. Hey Valananda Kanda, as Srila Prabhupada, our spiritual master, said, that this movement is simply recreation, enjoyment. And the devotees, someone who's actually advanced in spiritual life doesn't see a need to do all these other things like play golf, which is simply miserable. I'm sure Prabhupada said it. He said people play golf just hitting the ball, as the devotees were explaining to Prabhupada, just hitting the ball, hitting it until it goes into a hole, which is a stupid game. So, excuse me if I'm offending anybody. Or as I was taking my walk today, I saw the cable TV guy, the satellite TV guy pulling the different houses trying to keep people in front. So someone who's taking enjoyment in spiritual life is able to see Krishna's pastimes because he has a spiritual TV. He doesn't need the satellite dish on top of his house because he has a satellite dish in his heart. He's able to see any pastime of Krishna that he wants to see. So this is the pleasure. And the Bhagavad Gita, this is in that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness, realized in the transcendental senses. This is actual freedom from all miseries arising from material content, and that's described as the Paramdrishta Nivartate, the experience of to see a higher pleasure. And that's spiritual life, and that's what Balaram gives us. So, in order to advance, we require strength. Spiritual strength. It's interesting, some people, and this is from Prabhupada's lecture, Chaitanya Charitamrita, some people think that we just sit back and they have this misconception about Balaram and also Krishna's mercy. They think they can just sit back and say, Nityananda, Nityananda, Balaram, Nityananda, Balaram. And then the strength will build. But Balaram is like our personal trainer. Does everybody know what a personal trainer is? Any of you? No, you don't know. Okay, so let's say you go to the gym. You know what a gym is? Let's say you go to a place where they have weights that you lift. Anyway, it's exercise. So let's say you go to a place where they have exercises. Then you get someone who tells you what? How to use it. Not that because if you go there and you try to lift up something that's too heavy, guess what happens? You get a hernia or some problem like that. Or if you go there and just watch people. We have people in spiritual life that are just observers. Some people watch what happened, wonder what happened, and other people make things happen, right? Those are the three types of people. So we should just be watching what happens. Oh, that's a nice temple. I hope they build that temple there across the street. Really, it would be nice to go and eat prashadam there. Or wonder what happened, hey, why did all the other devotees get so advanced and I'm just not experiencing it? We should make things happen. So, that's the point about Balaram. And it's interesting, we'll talk about the demons in a second, the relationship with Balaram, the demons he killed, two specific demons in Vrindavan. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that the demons represent anarthas. They also are real. There are real demons. There were real demons. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur says the demons that Balaram killed represent the anarthas that we have to deal with ourselves. In other words, it's not a free ride. That you just say, Balaram, please free me from lust. And you wake up the next morning. It's gone. It's not like you go to the dentist, you get Novocaine. Of course, there's no such thing as a painless dentist. That's not some moron. So, and you wake up, oh, free life. You have to struggle under the instruction of Balaram's representative. So that's spiritual strength that we get by exercising with our personal trainer, the Guru, and who's Balaram's representative, gives us the energy whereby we can approach Krishna, because there's this whole hierarchy I mentioned before. You first approach the spiritual master, Balaram, Nityananda, you become free from things, and then you go to Krishna, then you go to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and if you want to understand the conjugal love of Radha Krishna, then ultimately you approach the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. So this is the hierarchy. that if we try to jump over, then we fall flat on our faces. It's called Maryada Vyatikrama, where one jumps over a superior personality or the process that you're supposed to take or the etiquette that you're supposed to follow. I mean, most of us don't know about etiquette. You know what etiquette is? Etiquette means manners, plain language. Wash your hands before eating, after eating, that's manners. So there's also manners in dealing with people. Like we see in Krishna's pastime, who generally, except in the case where Krishna disobeyed Balaram. Because as I mentioned this morning, Krishna was not always the best example of etiquette. Dancing with other people's wives in the middle of the night. His example leaves a lot to be desired. But anyway, outside of Vrindavan, let's forget about Vrindavan for a second, Krishna sets a good example. So, especially as Lord Ram, and I've read the Ramayana many times, Lord Ram sets a perfect example of etiquette. Listening to his father's instructions, like it was God's word. Nowadays, people don't follow this etiquette. Anyway, so with this following the proper etiquette, developing our spiritual strength, then we become capable of approaching Krishna. So right now, we're in a situation where we're not that strong, right? So when Maya attacks, like Arjuna here asks, this is verse from the Gita, the 3rd chapter, text 36, why what is one forced to act or compelled to sin less? Even if they're unwilling, he's forced. And Krishna answers, it's one of these anarthas that we were talking about. And we're going to be talking about a demon in a second that represents this anartha. It is lust only, born of contact with material mode, passion that later transformed into wrath, and is the all-devouring, sinful enemy of this world. And it's what all the companies are using to market everything, basically. Lust. And their business is to increase lust, and our business is to decrease it. One time there was a devotee. He wrote a letter to Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, I would like to have many wives. Because, you read in the Vedic literatures, especially if you become inspired by Chitraketu. How many wives did Chitraketu have? 10 million. Would that be nice? So, Chitraketu, no. So, he wrote to Prabhupada. He actually just wanted one more. That's 10 million. That would be a little overwhelming. You need a database. Like I know some gurus have got a database for their disciples just so they can come into town with pictures. Oh yeah, let me look you up for a second. So Prabhupada said, our business, your business is to increase lust. Remember that? Your business is to increase and our business is to decrease. So we're meant to decrease this lust. And of course this is Durga, who's a great devotee of Krishna. But she's the jailer or the warden of this prison house that we're in. Durga means the name means to move with great difficulty. So we're in a prison right now. And so she is attempting to keep us in. She has two aspects. She throws you in illusion, and she keeps you in illusion. Just like, I'll give you an example of practical, my own personal life, how there was an attempt to keep me in illusion. When I wanted to join the Hare Krishna movement, my friends who I was living with, who I paid all the bills for and was cooking for, in Gainesville, Florida, said, no, you have too much karma. You have to work it out. And so through their mouth, Durga was speaking to me. And I said, hell no. By chanting Hare Krishna and serving Prabhupada, you don't have to worry about karma anymore. They get very angry. One of them took his hand and he smashed his car so hard that he couldn't enter the car. Because he knew he couldn't live without me. Later on, 3 days later, they joined the Hare Krishna movement. Because they had no one to cook for them and no one to pay for their bills. Anyways. So that's what Maya puts us, throws us in Maya and keeps us there. No, you don't have time, you have too many responsibilities. So chanting Hare Krishna is, it takes too long every day to chant Hare Krishna. Offering your food, no, vegetarianism, no. That's fine. So who gives us spiritual strength? Krishna says, first Krishna expands his Balaram. I am the strength of the strong, devoid of passion and desire. That's from Bhagavad Gita, the 7th chapter, text 11. So let's talk about the demons now, because I love demons. So we got the demon Columbus. Oh, one interesting question I have for all of you. What do you find in Balaram's fighting the demons that differentiates in his manner of fighting the demons? Let's be more specific. Differentiates him from Krishna fighting the demons. Just the manner of fighting. I'm not talking about the demons specifically. What? He's not playful. That's it. How did you know? He kills them immediately. Krishna sort of like plays with them a little bit, like a cat plays with a mouse. Whereas Balaram, he just takes these demons and just whips them and throws them into a tree. And just one time he hits him on the head. Like when Lord Ram was fighting with Ravana, it took him a long time. I mean, he could have killed them immediately, but he was sort of playing with him to enjoy the exchange, the loving exchange. Actually, in the Uttara Ramayana, there's a description that Ravana, he actually realized who Lord Krishna was and who Ram was, and he actually wanted to be killed by him so he could go back to Godhead. It's interesting. Anyway, part of the Ramayana. So, let's talk about the demon Kalambasura. Kalambasura represents passion. Now, look at that. With passion, that means lust, for those of you who don't know what passion means. And it also means the subtle form of lust, which is profit, adoration, distinction. So profit means, so much is mine today, I want more and more and more. I want a bigger house, a bigger car. And adoration is, what do they say? The roar of the crowd, the smell of the grease paint? I don't think I need to know what that means. But it means you really like people worshiping you. And I was speaking to one guru who said, really, it encouraged me so much when people bathe my feet. so there was one young girl, I asked her, do you know what a sannyasi is? And she said, yes, a sannyasi is someone who goes to people's house and gets their feet bathed. That's her definition of a sannyasi. So someone who really likes to be worshipped. And of course they can be cheated very easily because they just walk into a store in New York and the salesman says, you're so intelligent. Many of our book distributors use that technique. They say, oh, you're so intelligent, you can understand this knowledge here in the book. Oh yeah, someone finally recognized. So it's a sales technique. You can use that in your right? This book is not for everybody. I used to do that when I got a book. This book is not for everybody, but I can see that you're different. I mean, how would you see he's different? You just met him 10 seconds ago. But he's looking for that adoration and distinction. Being different from someone else. You're not just an ordinary person. I mean, the biggest insult you can say to someone is, you're just ordinary. If you can say you're the biggest rascal, that's kind of nice. Or the most intelligent is kind of nice, but you're just ordinary. Like Bodhi one time said to Prabhupada, I'm the most fallen. And Prabhupada said, you're not the most anything. Because if you want to be fallen, you better be the most fallen. So. Anyway, so Kalambasura represents this demon of lust. And interesting, one of the reasons he represents lust, this of course, according to Bhaktivinoda.org, is that Kalambasura was dressed as a coward boy. And not only dressed, he had the ability, the demons have the ability of shape-shifting. They could morph their bodies and look like anything he wanted to. It's Rakshasa tendency. So he shifted his shape so he looked like a cowboy. And they were having this whole competition, teams between Krishna and Balaram's team. And it's interesting that Balaram's team won. So the winners got to ride on the backs of the losers. It's nice. And so what happened is that Balaram was riding on the back, because Kalambasura was on Krishna's team. Balaram was riding on the back of Kalambasura. And what happened is that Kalambasura was thinking, let me get rid of Balaram first. And I'll carry him some distance away so no one can find him. So he started carrying Balaram some distance away, and Balaram was wondering, where are we going? And the demon, Balaram made himself quite heavy. And the demon, in order to get more of his material strength, resumed his original form with nice earrings. Demons wear earrings. Not that everybody wears earrings. But anyway, he assumed his original form. Balaram said, my, how this carrier has changed. And Balaram just immediately took his fist, whack, and he fell down. Really easy killing thing like that. So, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, I'm going to read something here, says, in his previous life, he was Vijaya, the son of the Gandharva king, and he was cursed by Kubera to become a demon because he stole some flowers from his garden. Simple thing. So be careful next time you're stealing flowers. At least don't steal it. And here's some quotes from Bhaktivinoda Thakur, which are really interesting. He said, lusty attractions for the opposite sex, greed for money, the desire for sense gratification, inclinations for increasing one's honor and false prestige, the desire for being worshipped, these are all certainly very strong obstacles and are very difficult to overcome. But if one understands they are detrimental for one's development through Krishna consciousness, one will be very enthusiastic to cast them out. In other words, one has to work, like I said before. You can't just lay back and expect everything to happen. If one endeavors, this is Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in a very humble mood, Krishna will certainly show his mercy. Then upon the awakening of the mood of Sri Baladeva in the devotee's heart, these contaminations will be instantly removed. The methods of process of purification are very deep and mysterious. Therefore, it is necessary to learn about them directly from a bona fide spiritual master. Exactly what I said before. That's the manifestation of Balaram. The methods of purification. Sadhana Bhakti specifically started with Vaidhi Bhakti. Rules and regulations. Rise early. Chant a certain number of rounds. As we heard the other day from in the Sunday program about the list that Prabhupada put on the wall when we first started the temple. The devotees asked him, are there any rules? Eating food, concerned about eating food, not association, not having bad association, etc., etc. So anyway, so this is the story. Balaram carried Kalamba, carried Balaram far away. And then there's the second demon that Balaram killed. And incidentally, these two demons are meant, the demons and the anarcha they represent are meant to be conquered by our own efforts under the direction of the spiritual master. The second demon is Dinakasura, who is a big ass. Not only figuratively, but literally. Because figuratively means something stupid. So it's easy to figure out what anarcha he represents. He represents the low, carrying, ass-like mentality of people who are just like working day duty, night duty, or Srila Prabhupada said, observing the cars on the highway traveling back and forth at breakneck, neck break, as Prabhupada said. Prabhupada switched the words around. Neck break speed, back and forth, going to work. And we saw this film about people in Japan who traveled such long distances to go to work, cramped up in these trains where they have to have special pushers to push them into the train. Like a sardine can. Some of you may not know what sardines are, but anyway, like a can filled with fish. And they like travel like that for hours. going to work every day. They can't even chant their rounds in such a condition. Part of the do they chant rounds, and their suicide rate is very high. So he represents the mentality of overburdened load carry, and Srila Prabhupada, the Bhaktivinoda Thakur says here, describing about his previous life, that he was the son of Bali Maharaj. He had a good father. He offended Durvasa Muni by disturbing him when the Muni was meditating, making a lot of noise while he was enjoying with 10,000 women on Mount Gandhamadana. Durvasa cursed him to become an ass. He said, "Fool, ass-like person, become an ass." And after 400,000 years as an ass, it's a long time, you will attain liberation by one of Balaram's hand. So does anyone know why Krishna also couldn't kill him? Why couldn't Krishna kill this demon Devasura? Think about it. What? That's right.
Never killed his ancestors.
That's right. Because Lord Nrsimhadev promised Prahlad Maharaj that he would never kill any of his descendants, even though some of them acted like demons. I mean, Bali Maharaj wasn't killed, he was given a position. And the same thing is, Devasura couldn't be killed by Krishna directly, and be killed by Krishna's expansion. So Balaram killed him. And so Balaram is thus the source of spiritual strength, free, which we don't see material strength free from passion and ignorance in this world. I mean, if someone is very strong, they're usually full of passion. Like you see some movies, Rambo or Terminator or whatever. I haven't watched it. I've just heard about it. There is so much passion for football players. Have you ever been to a football game? American football game, they're yelling and screaming and calling each other names. There's so much angry, bitter, envious passion. So Balaram is passionless strength. So in the Krishna book, Prabhupada says, one cannot attain the supreme platform of self-realization without being sufficiently favored by Balaram. Balaram does not mean physical strength. One must have spiritual strength, which is infused by Balaram or Sankirtan. He is the source of all spiritual strength. And therefore we have Lord Nityananda, the incarnation of Balaram, or the appearance of Balaram, and he's the original spiritual master. And the spiritual master is the representative of Nityananda and Balaram, the physical Lord Balaram. And also appears as Lord Nityananda. Now what is the name of Lord Nityananda? Always happy. Prabhu Nityananda, Premananda Sukhi, my dear Lord Nityananda, you're always happy. But what? Amibaro Dukhi. What is that? I'm miserable. So please fix me up on your lotus feet. So, in other words, like Prabhupada said one time, the devotee said, I like the shelter of your lotus feet. And Prabhupada said, my lotus feet are always moving. So you touch, sometimes, I go to people's houses and want to touch your feet, I have to stand still. Or else they might fall over. But Prabhupada said he's always moving. That means he's always preaching Krishna consciousness. In other words, if you want the shelter of Lord Nityananda's feet, you have to perform Sankirtan. Sankirtan means two things. It means congregational chanting, distribution of Krishna consciousness, and it also means, according to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, complete absorbed chanting. But specifically, we find that Lord Nityananda, along with Haridas Thakur, who is the Namacharya, who is certainly absorbed in complete absorbed chanting, were sent out by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on Sankirtan. They were sent out to ask people to chant Hare Krishna. The same way we have this nice Sankirtan going on here. We have a monthly Sankirtan festival as an advertisement, which you can see later, where all the devotees get the opportunity to go out and distribute Srila Prabhupada's books door to door. And it's a festival. It's wonderful. It doesn't make you happy when you go out to the Srila? You forget about all the cares and sorrows that are there in the world, right? If you read the news, you get into all the cares and sorrows. You know, what's happening in Afghanistan, what's happening in Syria, what's happening in Egypt, what's happening in the economy. And then you go on Saturday and you just get to a higher transcendental platform. My experience is when you go out to a certain coast, then your hearing becomes very acute as far as hearing spiritual subject matters. And you become situated in a higher realm of Krishna consciousness. So that's really important. So if you want the mercy of Lord Nityananda, you can join Nityanarayan's party. He's the local representative of Lord Nityananda's Sankirtan party. So, little advertisement. You'll pay me for it later. So, and then there's, of course, who's that? Krishna Balaram, where? Vrindavan. Stolen by Prabhupada. So Balaram takes great pleasure in exhibiting these few pastimes. Krishna and Balaram, of course. Balaram and Krishna acted as coward boys. And they blessed the land of Vrindavan with the distinct marks of their lotus feet. And Krishna said to Balaram, these bees must be your devotees because they're following you. And these bees, of course, are our devotees. In Vrindavan, everything and everyone is a devotee. There's no unconscious matter. And Krishna and Balaram, when they were enacting their pastimes in Vrindavan, played in different ways. Sometimes they made believe that they were animals, and they were fearful of animals, and they were hearing the sound of animals and running here and there. And Krishna sometimes assumed a subservient position in relationship to Balaram and massaged Balaram's feet. And as we mentioned this morning, it's not that Krishna always listened to Balaram. Sometimes Krishna was a little disobedient against the etiquette, the normal etiquette. And here's the story of the Dana-Basura. The reason that the devotees wanted Krishna and Balaram to go to the Talavana forest to kill the Dana-Basura is because there were nice fruits there. But it's not that the coward boys were interested simply in articulating their sense of taste and tasting new things. They wanted to see Krishna's pastimes. And they went to the Talavana forest, and here's the story. Balaram first shook the tree, and that caused the demon to get angry. So Balaram wanted to have a good fight, and then immediately, after the demon hit Balaram, whirled him around and threw him into a tree, and there were so many demons and trees, it looked like demon trees. What? Yeah, well, I'll be finished in a second. We're almost finished. So this is what we mentioned before, by killing the demons, and then we discussed what it means with Balaram is the original spiritual master. And Srila Prabhupada says here in a lecture, spiritually strong means to have good faith in Krishna and Guru. That is spiritual strength. And good faith means simply believing if you do what Krishna wants, everything will be accomplished. You will become happy, you'll have good health, everything will be fortunate in your life. You don't have to worry about your horoscope anymore. There's so many times I deal with devotees who read their horoscopes and they get into such a negative frame of mind. There's a devotee who published a book, in fact, in this time called How to Ruin Your Life with Astrology. You seen that book? I can give everybody a copy of it. And that means we don't have faith in Krishna because Prabhupada said, with a tip of his toe, Krishna can kick away millions of Rahu planets. When you chant and dance, all the lines in your hand change for the better. Of course. So we have faith in that. We don't have faith in astrology. Prabhupada says we're not interested in astrology. The spiritual strength is shown by chanting Hare Krishna mantra and following the rules and regulations. That's what Prabhupada said. Spiritual strength with sadhana and practice. So it's something we must think, feel, and do. So this is what I mentioned before, the quote from Bhaktivinoda Thakur. There's two demons killed by Baladev. The contaminations they represent will have to be removed by dint of the devotee's own endeavors. This is one of the secret mysteries of Raja Bhakti. Remember that. No free rides. But you have to endeavor in a humble mood, and then Krishna will show you his mercy. Dependent on Krishna, but also in exerting yourself to your utmost. And it really takes a lot of exertion to control your senses. That's the point we're making. Controlling the senses. And of all the senses, which sense is the most difficult? Tongue. Most voracious and uncontrollable. There's two things that hurt us. One thing is called vajalpa. You just flapping like the teeth, you would wind up in a little battle or something like that. Motor mouth. And the other thing is eating different things. You know, just brings different taste. You know, tonight we go to Chinese, tomorrow we go to Japanese, the next time, you know, restaurants. Next day we go to Indian restaurant, next day we go to Italian, like that. First of all, these lives should have a beginning and an end. I mean, after you've eaten it, it's gone. You spent your money and it's gone. Finished. Finito. Boss. So this is just a summary. We get unlimited pleasure from spiritual strength, brings us closer to Krishna and Balaram, and strength comes from Balaram, the original guru, and we also follow our guru, who's representative of Balaram, and we use the strength given by exercising, by following their injunction as our personal trainer to conquer passion and ignorance, and we experience unlimited happiness, no more suffering from illusion, and we do this by having good sadhana. So here we end with this. This is a very nice verse composed by Jayadeva Goswami. It's one of his Dasa Avatar shlokas. Vahasi Babusi Vishade Vashnam Devadhava Bhakti Pala Bhakti Nita Vinavya Keshavadrita Avadara Bhuva Keshava, O Lord of the universe, O Lord of the Reef, who have assumed the form of Lord Balaram, the wielder of the plow. All glories to you. On your brilliant white body you wear garments the color of a fresh blue rain cloud. These garments are colored like the beautiful dark hue of the river Yamuna, who feels great fear due to the striking of your plowshares. We have to have arti now, so all glories to Lord Balaram. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Yeah.